Thank you for staying with us. You're still watching The Breakfast on Plus TV Africa. World Bank approves $1.08 billion for Nigeria's development. The World Bank has approved a loan of $1.08 billion funding package to improve Nigeria's education system, nutrition programs, and community resilience. This includes $500 million for the NG Cares program to support vulnerable populations, $80 million for the ARENE 2.0 initiative to fight malnutrition, and $500 million for OLOJEDE program to enhance education quality. The NG Cares program will expand its support to vulnerable groups across Nigeria, offering social transfers, labor-intensive public works, and food security interventions. The additional funding will also help Nigeria cope with economic challenges from fuel subsidy reforms and currency unification. The OLOJEDE program aims to address educational gaps by improving literacy and numeracy in Nigeria's primary schools, benefiting millions of children and teachers. Additionally, the $80 million investment in ARENE 2.0 would focus on improving nutrition for pregnant women, children, and adolescent girls to reduce malnutrition and food insecurity. Joining us this morning is GBOLAHAN OLOJEDE, a finance expert. Good morning, sir. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, good morning. Nice to be here.
Lovely. So we're talking $1.08 billion. That's a lot of money that has been approved for, Nigeria's development. So we're talking about education, we're talking about food, and helping vulnerable citizens. How significant is this for, the economic and social construct for Nigerians?
Well, the intention itself might not be a bad idea. I mean, improving nutrition. Of course, when you improve nutrition, that helps development, especially of children. So you don't have stunted growth, retardation, and all of that. The part that is meant to also go into education is fine. So intention-wise, I think it's a laudable idea. However, I have my concerns in several areas. Number one is that, look, there has not been enough transparency. In my opinion, in my observation, there's not been enough transparency about issues around conditional cash transfer. I may be wrong. I don't know about you. How much transparency can one say has been put on the table with respect to the database that form the basis for conditional cash transfer? Who are the beneficiaries that I know? I probably don't know any. It is not possible. I mean, it's possible that I may not know any. But let it be known that all that are required to be done, very basic issues. This is the database. There are 700 and something local governments in Nigeria. These are the beneficiaries from each of these local governments. Publish it. Or have that database validated by an independent organization. Call one of the professional firms that are in Nigeria and do an independent verification in which they will do a sampling of all these beneficiaries from across the country and say, okay, I have validated it. Recently, there was an issue of a recall in Kogi State. And what did INEC do? Try to validate that the people who have signed this recall are indeed real. They made calls and all of that, and they were able to validate or not, as the case may be. So I don't think we have shown enough transparency. This might just be money in which 50% of it will go into purposes that we don't know, or it might go into wrong pocket. Let me be frank about this. Even in countries where there is data, where there is, all these electronic things that have been perfected, the volume of fraud that were associated with the COVID-19 disbursement and palliatives in America, in Europe, is unbelievable. How
I
much
agree
more,
with you.
Nigeria?
So what mechanisms do you think we need to put in place, especially if we're talking about transparency and accountability as well? Because we've seen corruption in Nigeria. And for instance, the humanitarian ministry, Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, we've seen whereby you're hearing of billions or millions and billions of naira being siphoned. So how do we ensure that there are mechanisms in place for accountability and transparency? If this is supposed to fly.
We need to be able to validate the database that forms the basis for all these distributions. That is the number one thing that we need to do. And then for those ones that are not cash transferred, the specific activities for which this money is being deployed should be published, be made known. For example, money that are deployed to certain primary schools to provide certain things in those schools. Why can't we have a list of those schools? Why can't people like the media, like your good self, validate that indeed, when I went to this particular primary school in this local government, I saw the way this money has been deployed in those places. It brings credibility to what people are doing. Otherwise, we will be borrowing money. People will not get benefit of the borrowed money, but we will still have to pay back the borrowed money.
Yeah. And I think, honestly, that's so many Nigerian school of thoughts, that we keep borrowing money. We do not see what the monies are being used for. There is no development, nothing whatsoever. But I think let us address an elephant in the room, which is the heavy reliance on loans. How do you think we need to sort out ourselves? Because at the end of the day, we still need to service this debt. And if you look at our budget right now, debt servicing takes a chunk. So how do we position ourselves to ensure that we do not have to keep taking loans every single time in the guise of the development of Nigeria?
Number one thing we need to do is to take a longer perspective about our finances. Because when you need money and the need is like short term, it's like right now, and the solutions that you have cannot be deployed in a short term, you are only left with one option: to go and borrow to fill that gap. But if your financial planning takes a longer perspective, it means that you will have planned for, before you get to those junctions where you need the money, and the money, you'll be able to make it available. So we must take a longer perspective. Number two, our budgeting, in my opinion, has remained just an authority to spend rather than a planning document. We need to make it a true planning document, not just an authority to spend, which in my opinion has largely been what we have been doing. We also now need to introduce more, the checks and balances have to be more effective. For example, borrowings are required to be approved by the National Assembly. At the National Assembly, it will probably be assigned to the relevant committees to take a look at. What are the questions that are being asked by the relevant committees? When there is a long list of borrowing to be taken, we must ask certain questions. Number one, must we borrow to do this? So you look at each of the items that have been listed. Is there anything on this list that we can do without, which means we don't even have to do it at all? Those ones, we first eliminate them, so the issue of borrowing for them does not even arise. Then you come to those ones that, we cannot avoid this one, we must do it. If we must do it, when must we do it? How must we finance it? Must it be by borrowing? So all those critical questions will help us narrow the volume of borrowings that we have to do to only the necessary ones. If you ask me, this 1.08 billion or thereabout that we're talking about, I do not think that that is the best deployment of that money. If you want to improve people's nutrition, maybe you should provide them good food. So maybe it's civil money that should go into agriculture.
Yeah, I was just about to say that. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Other than, maybe you now say, you need to infuse certain product with certain vitamins and all of that. I don't know exactly how they intended to go around it. But rather than sharing money to people or sharing certain medications to people that are believed to improve the nutrition environment for them, maybe it should have been to give them food.
All right.
Improve the food production environment.
Yeah.
So all those kind of elements we need to do without them.
All right.
If you don't have to do them, don't even do them at all.
Yeah. I think one thing I definitely took from this is the fact that it shouldn't just be an opportunity to spend the budget, that is, it should be a planning document. And we need to really look at, you know, even with the business, you look at it and you think of things in a scale of preference. What do we need right now? What should we be spending our money for? So if we're getting investment coming in, what should that money go into? And that's something we need to look at in Nigeria. Also have the transparency and accountability, and we know the people that are probably going to benefit from these schemes. Anyways, this is where we have to wrap it up right now. Bola, I want to say thank you so much for coming. It's always a pleasure having you on the program. Thank you. All right. Yes. We're speaking with GBOLAHAN OLOJEDE. He's a finance expert, and we're just discussing the World Bank that has approved $1.08 billion to Nigeria for Nigerian development. This is how much we can take on the show today. Thank you so much for having a breakfast with me. My name is Rume Paulson. I'll see you again on Monday. Have a wonderful weekend.